Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast. Each week, your host, Casey Hasten, Director of Recruiting at VIP, will bring you valuable insights from thought leaders, introduce you to incredible companies, and bring you tips for landing your dream job from our team of executive recruiters at VIP. And now, Casey Hasten.
Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast, a podcast devoted to adding value to your candidate or career search. I'm Casey Hasten. I'm your host. I'm an executive recruiter, director of recruiting with VIP, and your all-around hiring guru. By the way, this podcast is brought to you by VIP. So continuing along in our normal fashion, today I have brought a phenomenal guest to you to share some insight into his wisdom. I have with me today the author of The Winning Mindset That Saved My Life, Tom Hulsey. Tom is an avid Ironman finisher, completing 9 Ironmans prior to his 61st birthday. I had no idea you were over 60, in 2015, when he was diagnosed with cancer. Though he initially was ready to quit and not fight the disease, his loved ones and friends encouraged Tom to keep fighting and helped him build the winning mindset that led him to complete his cancer recovery goals and complete 2 more Ironman. He is also passionate about helping others through philanthropy. I got it out. I'm proud of myself. And is a board member for many cancer research organizations, helping others find the winning mindset to fight their own battles. Thank you for joining us today, Tom.
It's an honor to be here, Casey.
So I want to just kind of tell everyone, and I'm going to see if you remember where we first met.
We met at Success North Dallas about a year ago at an event right here.
It was an event, yeah.
Yep.
It was an open mic podcast night.
Yes.
And you and I happened to sit at the table together, and we started talking, and I was like, you ride bicycles? And I was like, what kind of bike do you have? And I remember you looking at me going, you know bikes? I was like, I do. So I kind of want to set this conversation up with one of my favorite quotes today. And I'm sure you're familiar with it. All great thought leaders love Napoleon Hill. Mm-hmm. But I want to start this off with whatever the mind can conceive and believe, the mind can achieve. And I really feel like that's what Tom's going to talk to us about today, because you really had to set your mind to not just winning the race, winning in life.
That's right.
So, so you have been an incredible inspiration in the health and wellness, as well as being the health and wellness evangelist. Tell us a little bit about what an Ironman is, because not everybody knows, and how it helped you to find your inner strength.
Well, an Ironman is 3 disciplines. It's a 2.4-mile swim,
Oh my God.
followed by a 112-mile bike,
Worse.
followed by a 26.2 marathon,
Yeah.
all in one day
Without stopping.
without stopping. Yes. The gun goes off at 7 a.m., and you have until midnight to cross that finish line so that you can be called an Ironman.
Wow. What did it feel like to finish your first one?
It was an amazing feeling. Actually, they all feel that way because you've put so much time and effort and energy into to getting there and then getting to the finish line. It's an amazing feeling. One of the most amazing feelings of accomplishment that I've ever felt in my life.
Did you fall down after the adrenaline stopped?
I did. Actually, after my first marathon, after my first Ironman, I threw up at the finish line. So
Oh, I saw a lot of that when I went to the Ironman. That was like, I mean, they just finished so strong, and as soon as they cross that line, they're like, done. So
once they get that photo op in of smiling across the finish line, then. Yep.
So true. I forgot about the photo op. That's amazing. So, I mean, obviously you do a ton of physical training to prepare for something like this. What kind of mental training goes into an Ironman? How did that mental training relate to the mindset you had to fight your cancer diagnosis?
Well, first of all, it's a very long day, the Ironman, and I like to say that it's really a metaphor for life. You have a lot of ups and downs during that day, just like we do in life. And how you deal with adversity is really what defines you. And there's a lot of parallels between the Ironman and when you're overcoming a challenge you have in life. In my case, it was a cancer diagnosis, and it was again the parallels are just the same. You've got to have that same mindset to compete in an Ironman as you do overcoming cancer.
Wow. Wow. And we were having this conversation right before we came on. I just want to kind of let everybody know so that we can go on with this conversation in a happy tone. I asked you if you were cancer-free, and you told me.
I'm actually, cancer-free is not the right word. The right medical terminology is NED, no evidence of disease, because anyone that's had cancer, the potential for the cancer to recur is out there. So it's, again, I like to refer to myself as being 4.5 years NED at this point.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. How can people apply the same mental training to their own goals in life? In other words, how important is it to have that winning and positive attitude when taking on challenges?
Well, having the right mindset is really the first step that you need to take in preparing for an Ironman and to defeat cancer or any obstacles in life. And there are really 3 keys in my mind to having that mindset, that winning mindset or growth mindset, if you will. And that's perseverance, overcoming fear, and being intentional. And all 3 of these are really what go into that mindset or that mentality that it takes to complete an Ironman or overcoming an obstacle in your life.
So I know we've talked about this. We've had lots of discussions, and I just want to kind of bring this in for just a second. My boyfriend, Steve, who I've yet to introduce you to, but that's going to happen. We're going to have a dinner or something. Recently completed, almost a year ago, completed his first Ironman. Mm-hmm. And I was firsthand witness to the mental fortitude he had to have, the training that went into it. And I was so inspired by him and then you, after talking to you, that I started kind of comparing that, just like you're doing, to life and to, I think everybody has an Ironman. It's just not the same, yep. Right? Yep. And so I wrote an article about what is your Ironman. And I really wanted to challenge people to think about it. What is that goal? Do you want to buy a house? Do you want to, get fit, lose weight? Whatever it is, that is your Ironman.
That's
and
right.
You have to attack it, with the right mindset, number one. Because if you go in there thinking you're going to fail, you're going to fail. Mm-hmm. What is it Theodore Roosevelt says? If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't.
Yep.
That's exactly right. So, you have to have the right mindset. And then you have to have the commitment. You have to be, like you said, committed to the cause. And finally, you got to show up. You can't finish that race if you don't show up,
That's
right?
That's right.
So.
And I always like to say that half the battle of an Ironman really is getting to the starting line.
Yeah.
Because it takes a year to really prepare for one, mm-hmm. and so much can go wrong in that year. So really half the battle is just getting to that starting line. And I'd also like to say that a lot of people think the Ironman is just a physical event, but it really comes back to mental. And I like to say that 60% of doing an Ironman is really mental versus the physical.
Yeah, it would be so easy for me, because I don't think I could do an Ironman, but it would be so easy to be sitting there and, about to transition or about to start your run and just want to go, I'm done. I want to stop. Did you ever have those moments when you thought you were going to stop, or did you have your mindset like a steel trap?
Well, having that right mindset is key to really overcoming those obstacles. As I mentioned earlier, in an Ironman, just like in life, you have your ups and downs, and you've got to have that mindset and setting and have those goals out there to look beyond those times when you're going through some tough times. Again, it applies to life too. You've got to have those long-term goals, mm-hmm. and that's one of the things that I did when I was diagnosed with my cancer. Was I set goals for myself to get beyond those dark days and those peaks and valleys that you go through, and something like that.
That is such an analogy for life. And what you went through was traumatic, and it was huge, and it really probably required a stronger mindset than just everyday life, I'm sure. But still, and I try to teach my team and teach others when I'm coaching them that if your mindset is everything. You create your own reality. And so you have to believe that it's going to be okay. Doesn't mean it's always going to work out that way, but it's sure not going to work out that way if you don't believe it.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. In your book, The Winning Mindset That Saved My Life, it tells your story about growing from an athlete absorbed with physical training and competition to a man that is devoted to helping and inspiring others. It really teaches a lesson about servant leadership and serving others to serve yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about the work you've done to give back to others and support your cancer research and how that's helped you continue to build your winning mindset?
Let me back up. Being a cancer survivor has given me a wonderful perspective on life. And there's a great quote that I have really embraced, and it's the one sentence that's on Jackie Robinson's tombstone, and it says, "A life is not important except for the impact it has on other lives," and I've really embraced that sentence, and that has given me a perspective to really really to make a difference in other people's lives and all. When I was first diagnosed with cancer, I heard the three words I never wanted to hear. Anyone wants to hear it, but it was on my birthday in 2015, and it was a gut punch, and I was in a pretty dark place. And I did not share my diagnosis with very many people, which lessons learned, that's not the way you approach something like this, but I kept it inside. But I did confide in a couple of people, and one of the people that I confided in was my good friend Jan Claudner through Success North Dallas, and he had gone through some medical issues himself, and he knew that I was at that time I was in a pretty dark place. Mm-hmm. And he said, one of the things I did to get beyond my medical challenge was to set goals for myself. And Jan knew that I was an Ironman, and he said, and the motto of the Ironman is anything is possible. And he said, Tom, you need to set goals for yourself to get beyond these dark days. Because I was in a pretty dark place. When you hear the word cancer, it's almost like a death sentence, mm-hmm. because compounding my negative mindset, if you will, at that point was I had just witnessed my best friend lose his life to prostate cancer, and it was gut-wrenching to witness what he was going through. And I thought, well, my time was up. But anyway, fast forward to my conversation with Jan, I decided, I was going to start setting goals for myself to get beyond all that. I had two long-term goals that I set. I had a short-term, an intermediate, and long-term, and my long-term goals was to be able to do another Ironman, and also be able to walk my daughter down the aisle.
I'm gonna cry. I need tissue tray.
and I achieved my goals, but at the time when I was doing all this, it wasn't so much to make a difference in the world, but being able to start talking about it, I started blogging. It was very therapeutic for me.
Good for you.
A year after my diagnosis, with my wife's encouragement, I wrote my first blog, and she said, if you impact one person in this world, just think how that would make you feel. And the first response back I got back was from a gentleman in New Zealand. I had given him hope and inspiration. And so then it just kind of mushroomed from there, and I had received more and more responses. So again, my goal at the time wasn't to make a difference, but it was very therapeutic for me, and that's when I just went from there.
So how did you go from writing your book, and tell me the sequence of events. Did you write the book and then you started going on the boards for the cancer organizations, or?
Well, in March of 2016 is when I wrote my first blog. And one of the things that was given to me on my surgery day was this blue wristband. I've never taken it off, and it says 0, the end of prostate cancer. And I thought it was just a cool-looking wristband, but I didn't know anything what 0 was, but I continued to wear it. But it was in March of 16 when I decided to do some research, because I really wanted to what can I do to make a difference, with my story, because I was seeing the success my blogs are having, and I looked into 0, and subsequently I joined their endurance team, and I raced for them at Ironman Lake Placid, and then subsequently at the World Championship in Kona. representing them in fundraising. And
I was just going to say, this is in Kona, right?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to show his book real quick. Okay, I'm not real good at this. The Winning Mindset, that is his picture in Kona. And what number was this? 9 or 8?
this was number 11. This was
11.
my last one.
Okay. So beautiful. Go get the book, help support, because I believe, don't all your proceeds, or is the majority of them?
The net proceeds, 100% of the net proceeds go back to cancer research
That's
and
amazing.
education and awareness.
That's awesome. I did not mean to interrupt you. I'm so sorry.
No, that's all right. But as far as the sequence of events, though, the book just came out a year ago, but I had joined the board of Zero, the End of Prostate Cancer, back in 17 after I completed my long-term goals of doing the Ironman and walking my daughter down the aisle. I changed my focus now to advocacy and awareness, and I joined the board of Zero. And shortly thereafter, people said, "You ought to write a book. Your story is so encouraging." And so I did that, and it's been very rewarding. The lives I have impacted with this. At the time, I didn't think I was really not author material. I was, writing a blog is one thing, but writing a book is another thing. But the lives I've impacted, though, with the book has been phenomenal. The book is very much a grassroots effort. I'm self-published. I don't have an agent. This picture on the cover was taken on a whim with my wife's cell phone camera.
That's awesome.
I had no idea it was going to be the cover of a book. And like I said earlier, best of all, though, proceeds are going back to cancer research. And now I've been doing some other things. I do a lot of advocacy work for Zero in D.C. on Capitol Hill. I'm part of the congressionally directed medical research programs, the prostate cancer research program under that. It was allocated $110 million last year by Congress, and so that number keeps growing. And very honored that it's just so neat to see that despite all the turmoil and all in Washington, that we're able to get this kind of funding. And I'm going to be going back next month with our group to advocate for more dollars. And I sit on the other side of the table on this particular program. I am a peer reviewer for the prostate cancer research program, where we determine how that money is going to be allocated for grants and research and all. So I see how that our advocacy is working, and then on the other side of the table, determining how that money is going to be allocated. I've done other things now. I now sit on the Mary Crowley Cancer Research here in Dallas, and they do a lot of they work with all different types of cancers. It's giving more options to cancer patients, and very, very honored to serve on their board now too.
Do you sleep?
Do I sleep? Well, once in a while.
That sounds like you're pretty busy. Okay, so one of the themes you cover in your book is be intentional. How do you do that every day?
Well, first of all, being intentional for me since my cancer has been pretty straightforward, because I was very intentional because I wanted to achieve my goals, cancer recovery goals. So I was being intentional, was getting to do the Ironman again, being able to do that took a lot of being intentional, and being intentional keeps you focused, if you will. And now today I am intentional because I know I'm positively impacting people's lives with my story, so that helps me be intentional on a daily basis.
I love that. I have a question. If you don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but were you going through chemo or any kind of treatment like that while you were training for the Ironman?
I was not.
Okay. I was going to say, wow, that would have been tough.
I was fortunate, and part of my message to it's really any cancer, but to men in general, is to get checked, because the early detection and the PSA blood test is what ultimately saved my life. Because it was detected early, so it had not spread outside of the prostate, and that's that was, again, a blessing in disguise for me. Many of my friends and associates that are part of this, I call it reluctant brotherhood, haven't been as fortunate as me. So it was detected early.
Oh, thank goodness.
To put the numbers in kind of in perspective, if you will, according to the American Cancer Society, 1 in 8 Caucasian and Hispanic men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer in his lifetime. 1 in 6 African American men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer in his lifetime, and no one seems to have an answer for that yet now, right? Why African Americans are more prone to that. But to put those numbers in perspective, 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in her lifetime. So the numbers are very similar. The deaths associated with prostate cancer actually have gone up over the last few years, even though the headlines that you've seen recently talk about cancer deaths have gone down, but there's several cancers, including prostate cancer, where that's not the case.
Wow. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about overcoming your fear, which you kind of address in the book as well. And in my career and what I do, I help people find jobs all the time. Sometimes they're unemployed, and it can be a scary time for them. Yep. So what advice would you give, let's say a job seeker or anybody, on overcoming fear?
Well, the first step in overcoming fear is to acknowledge it. And then you have to, but you can't focus on it. If you focus on that fear, it's going to it's going to be detrimental to your job search or whatever your challenge may be. But you've got to acknowledge it and then move on. And again, it goes back to setting goals too. You've got what is it you're trying to achieve, and that's going to help you get beyond that fear. I mean, fear is natural. Just like when I was diagnosed with cancer, I was paralyzed for a while, literally, but I acknowledged it, and then I moved on from that.
Yeah, you can't sit in fear because you're not going to get anywhere.
Mm-mm. You can't dwell on it.
Yeah. One of the things that I try to tell my candidates when they are expressing that they're fearful or not confident to go to a job interview is, you need to envision yourself where you want to be. And, people think that I have all this confidence in the world, but it's just because, I see myself where I want to be. And I think if you do that, it will help you overcome that fear quicker. Mm-hmm. And definitely don't dwell on it. And we've talked about this, and I love that, you are repeating a lot of the things that a lot of thought leaders say, right? Mindset. It really, really, really comes back to mindset. I can't stress how important that is, because your brain is going to focus on whatever you're thinking about.
That's right.
And if you're thinking about the negative stuff, that's all you're going to see.
That's right.
So
you've got to focus beyond, where you are maybe today. Again, those pitfalls or the valleys that you have, you've got to look beyond that and look toward your ultimate goal.
Absolutely. You once posted an article on LinkedIn called "When I is replaced with we, even illness becomes wellness." Mm-hmm. In this post, you described how important it was to talk to others about your emotions, and you mentioned that the feeling of aloneness can swiftly take over you. And I know we've talked about one person, but who are some of the other people that have helped you overcome, and how can someone that is feeling isolated in their battle reach out and not feel so isolated?
There were a couple of lessons learned through my journey, and like I said, I went about it the wrong way, but hopefully these lessons learned can help other people, because a cancer diagnosis, as you mentioned, can be overwhelming and very isolating, especially for men. I was there, and they don't want to talk about it. And it's so important to have a support group around you, whether it's a cancer diagnosis or job search, whatever. But you've got to have that support group around you, because if not, those emotions can swiftly overtake you, and it almost did in my case.
Well, we're so glad it didn't.
Yeah.
I have thoroughly enjoyed meeting you and getting to know you a little
Likewise,
better.
Casey, yeah.
Okay, we are down to the part of the show where we ask you our VIP questions. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Nobody gets out of here without answering these questions, okay? So if you were chosen to be one of the first colonists on Mars, what 3 things or people would you take with you?
I would take my Bible. I would take my bike. Got to get around. And then my wife, Lauren.
I was going to say maybe an air pump to pump up the tires because you know they're going to go flat. I love that. Okay. What is the one thing you do each morning to set your day up for success?
I work out, set the alarm for 4:30, and
gross.
But it just energizes you and gets you pumped for the day. Though you just feel so good when you, and again that goes back to that being intentional it's hard sometimes because sometimes you don't really want to get out of bed, but knowing what the end result is, how it's going to feel, for the rest of the day, there's not a better feeling.
Good for you. I do not start my day off working out, just going to say.
That's my cup of coffee.
There you go. And final question, at least for the VIP questions, if your life's work was being summarized in a news article, what would the headline be?
Life is not a spectator sport.
I'd give you 5 on that one. I love that.
It's always been my motto, and it'll be with me to the day I die.
I actually stole that from you. Do you remember the picture that I did that went with that article, that blog?
Yes.
Yeah, I stole that from you. Life is not a spectator sport. So.
But I think that that really does define me.
I agree.
And all activities, everything in life.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. How do people find you, Tom? How do they find you to buy your book or just to find out, maybe connect with you?
Well, I have my website, which I believe is being displayed across the bottom of the screen, tomhulsey.com.
And we'll also put it in the show notes.
And it's on Amazon, the book. You can either go by the title of the book or my last name, and I'm right there on Amazon. And I would very much appreciate people's support, and it's going for a great cause.
It absolutely is. And again, the title of that book is The Winning Mindset That Saved My Life by Tom Hulsey. So, Tom, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and I just have one last thing to say to you.
Yes.
You are a VIP.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for today. Join us next week here on the We Are VIP podcast. We'd love to know how we can help you be a VIP. To find out more, log on to wearevip.com.